My boyfriend was secretly homeless. And I didn't know until the day he disappeared. My name is Mia Anderson. And for 2 years, I thought I knew everything about my boyfriend. I knew his favorite coffee. I knew his favorite movie. I knew he hated thunderstorms and loved old music. I knew how he smiled when he was nervous, and how he rubbed the back of his neck whenever he was hiding something. What I didn't know was where he slept at night. And by the time I learned the truth, he was gone. I met Daniel Carter on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was working at a small bookstore downtown. The weather was terrible, and almost nobody came inside. Around lunchtime, a tall man walked through the door completely soaked from the rain. His dark hair was dripping water onto the floor. I handed him a towel from behind the counter. "Rough day." He laughed. "You have no idea." That was the first thing he ever said to me. And somehow, it changed my life. Over the next few weeks, Daniel kept coming back. Sometimes he bought books. Sometimes he just sat near the window reading. Eventually, we started talking. Then texting. Then meeting outside the bookstore. A few months later, we became a couple. Daniel was different from anyone I had ever met. He wasn't rich. He didn't drive a fancy car. He didn't wear expensive clothes. But he was kind. The kind of person who helped strangers without expecting anything in return. The kind of person who remembered birthdays. The kind of person who made everyone around him feel important. I fell in love with him quickly. Maybe too quickly. Looking back, there were signs. Little things that didn't make sense. Daniel never invited me to his place. Not once. Whenever I suggested it, he'd smile and change the subject. "I'll show you someday." That someday never came. At first, I didn't think much about it. Everyone deserves privacy, right? But after nearly a year together, it started feeling strange. I had shown him my apartment. He knew my family. He knew my friends. Yet somehow, I knew almost nothing about his personal life. One evening, while we were eating dinner, I finally asked him directly, "Why won't you let me see where you live?" For a second, his smile disappeared. Then he looked away. "It's complicated." "What's complicated?" He hesitated, then forced another smile. "I promise I'll explain one day." I wanted to push harder. But I loved him. And love sometimes makes you ignore things you shouldn't. The second year of our relationship was wonderful. Or so I thought. We talked about the future. Traveling. Marriage. Children. Everything felt perfect. Then one morning, Daniel didn't answer my text. That wasn't unusual. Sometimes he got busy. But by evening, I still hadn't heard from him. The next day, nothing. The day after that, nothing. His phone went straight to voicemail. His social media accounts were inactive. No messages. No calls. Nothing. At first, I thought something had happened to his phone. Then I thought maybe there was an emergency. But days became weeks. And Daniel completely disappeared. I was terrified. I contacted hospitals, police stations, mutual friends. Nobody knew where he was. Or at least that's what they claimed. After almost a month, I was beginning to lose hope. Then I received a phone call. It was from a man named Marcus, one of Daniel's old friends. We met at a small diner. The moment I sat down, I knew something was wrong. Marcus looked uncomfortable, like he was carrying a secret. Finally, he sighed. "There's something you need to know." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" He looked down. Then he said words I'll never forget. "Daniel doesn't have a home." I stared at him. "What?" "He's homeless." For a moment, I thought I had heard him wrong. "That's impossible." Marcus shook his head. "No. It's true." Everything around me felt distant. Unreal. Homeless. Daniel? The man I dated for 2 years? The man I planned to marry? How could I not know? Marcus explained everything. Years earlier, Daniel had lost both of his parents within months of each other. Medical bills destroyed the family financially. He lost the house. Lost almost everything. Since then, he'd been surviving however he could. Working temporary jobs. Sleeping in his car. Sometimes staying in shelters. Sometimes parking lots. Sometimes wherever he could find safety. Tears filled my eyes. Why didn't he tell me? Marcus looked sad. Because he loved you. That answer made no sense. If he loved me, why would he lie? Because he was afraid. Afraid of what? That you'd leave. I sat there speechless. Because for 2 years, Daniel had been carrying a burden alone. And I never noticed. Then Marcus told me something even worse. A few months earlier, Daniel had been diagnosed with a serious illness. Not immediately life-threatening, but serious enough to require treatment. Treatment he couldn't afford. That's why he disappeared. He didn't want me watching him suffer. He didn't want me feeling responsible. He thought leaving was easier. For both of us. He was wrong. Very wrong. The next morning, I started searching. Every shelter. Every clinic. Every charity center. Anywhere he might be. Days turned into weeks. Still nothing. Then one rainy afternoon, I found him. A volunteer at a local outreach center recognized his photo. She pointed me toward a small shelter on the edge of town. I drove there immediately. My heart was racing so hard I could barely breathe. When I entered the building, I almost didn't recognize him. Daniel looked thinner, paler, exhausted. But it was him. For a moment, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then tears filled his eyes. Mia. I ran toward him and hugged him harder than I had ever hugged anyone. For several seconds, neither of us said a word. We simply stood there, holding each other. Eventually, Daniel pulled away. I'm sorry. I shook my head. No. I'm so sorry. No. His voice broke. I didn't want you to see me like this. Tears rolled down my cheeks. You should have let me decide that. For the next hour, we talked. Really talked. For the first time in 2 years, there were no secrets. No lies. No excuses. Daniel told me everything. The homelessness. The illness. The fear. The shame. And finally I understood. Daniel never lied because he didn't trust me. He lied because he didn't trust himself. He genuinely believed he wasn't good enough. That broke my heart more than anything else. A few months later, things slowly started improving. Daniel received help through a nonprofit organization. He began treatment, found stable work, and eventually moved into a small apartment. It wasn't fancy. The furniture barely matched. The kitchen was tiny. The bedroom was smaller. But it was home. The first real home he'd had in years. The day he got the keys, he cried. And honestly, so did I. A year later, Daniel's health improved significantly. His life improved too. For the first time in a very long time, he stopped surviving and started living. One evening, we sat together on the balcony of our apartment watching the sunset. Daniel smiled and squeezed my hand. You know something? What? I spent years pretending to be someone else. I looked at him. And now? He smiled. Now I finally get to be myself. I leaned against his shoulder. And for the first time since he disappeared, everything felt okay. Maybe not perfect, but real. And sometimes real is better than perfect. Because perfect can be fake. Real lasts. I once thought the saddest day of my life was the day Daniel disappeared. But I was wrong. The saddest thing would have been never finding him again. Never learning the truth. Never getting the chance to love him completely. Not the version he pretended to be, but the person he truly was. And that person? He was worth every mile I traveled to find him. Every tear. Every struggle. Every moment. Because sometimes love isn't finding the perfect person. Sometimes it's loving someone through their imperfections and helping them realize they never needed to hide them in the first place.